Welcome to the Real Advisor Podcast. TRAP, TRAP. Please follow us and join in the conversation on Twitter @Advisor Podcast, where you can suggest ideas and themes you'd like the TRAP team to discuss. Also remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and leave a 6 out of 5-star review on iTunes. Doing all this really helps us, which means we can do more to help you. Now let's head over to the studio for the latest pile of TRAP.
Yes, indeed, dear Trappists. Welcome back to what many people are calling episode 49 of the award-winning Real Advisor Podcast, TRAP, TRAP. My name is Lick Ninken. Joining me in the digital studio of doom are two of the horsemen of the apocalypse. Alan the Storyteller Smith, Andy Ultra Hart. The third amigo, Carl Dellavoce Widger. He can't be with us. He's currently floating in a pedalo, lost somewhere off the Portuguese coast in the Atlantic. We wish Carl well. He's out there with Clan Wodger on week 17 of his 50th birthday celebrations. But standing in for Carl, a very exciting moment, we have an honorary member of the Trap Pack from Pennsylvania in the US of A. We have Samantha Russell. Samantha, welcome to Trap. Thank you very much for taking the time to be part of this absolute car crash of a show.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. For those who don't know you in the UK financial services community, Sam, just tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I've been working in the financial services industry in the States for a little over a decade now, and started off, my husband and I started a company. It was SaaS, so software as a service company, a platform for financial advisors to help them grow using different digital marketing strategies. And we launched that business and grew it for a number of years. And then it was acquired in 2020 by a company also based in the US called FMG. And now I serve as the chief evangelist at FMG. We were just laughing about that title. And really what that just means is I go out on the road a lot, meet with advisors in person, teach them marketing strategies, and then learn what's actually working on the ground for them and bring it back to our team. And then we create new products around it.
Fantastic. And as you guys would say, we're super excited to have you on the show and to bring a US perspective to the UK and Irish financial services scene. So we hope you enjoy your stint on Trap. Okay, without any further ado, I think I'm going to hand over to my friend, the Right Honourable Mr. Andrew Hart, for two more high energy review reads. Andrew, crack on.
Thank you very much, Nick, and welcome, Sam. Okay, the first review is entitled Thought-Provoking 5 Stars, a podcast full of lively discussions and great debates. I just hope that the FCA and compliance officers listen to this too. Just a little less banter about the Welsh rugby team, please. Great work, guys, from the Hawcroft. I believe that's Helen Hawcroft. Welcome, Helen. Final review is entitled Insightful Content with a Bite, 5 stars. Howcroft. Helen Howcroft, okay. Let's move on. Entitled Insightful Content with a Bite, 5 stars. Love this format and the interaction between the four, aka piss taking. Great content and delivered in a meaningful way, not theory but practical. As an accountant, I want to understand more about what real financial advisors really do and how I can better join the dots between what I do and what they do to better serve business owners and the families. This really is a must listen for accountants as well as financial advisors. Mark Telford at Kent_accountant on Twitter. Thank you very much, Mark. That's a huge praise for the show. Back to you, Nick.
Great stuff. Thank you, Mark. He's a big booster of the show. And thank you to all of you that do submit the reviews. It gives us a shot in the arm and it's greatly appreciated. So please do keep on firing them in. Okay, let's give this episode a topical timestamp. Episode 49. There's been some, as Samantha would say, soccer tournament going on the continent. Andrew, you wish to talk about it?
Very briefly, yes. So I'm nursing somewhat of a hangover. It's been a very eventful weekend in England. Everyone's been barbecuing yesterday, watching the game late at night, but unfortunately it's not coming home. Spain pipped us. They're a much better team, but it could have nearly gone to extra time, but it didn't. Anyway, so the Euros are not coming home. But Samantha, you were telling us about your Euro trip recently. So do you want to add some?
It was.
Add some insight here.
I just have to say too, I don't know all the technical terms, but how about that play where with all the headbutting back and forth at the goal? Like that was so exciting to watch.
Headbutting.
Whatever you
That's
call
rugby,
it.
isn't it?
That was my kids, who are 8, 6, and 2, were all screaming violently at the TV because they're huge England fans. They all have all the kits. They were real excited. So yes, not the ending we all wanted, but yeah, we were in Europe for 2.5 weeks. Just came back about a week and a half ago, and went to multiple countries, and it was so fun because we, watched Italy play in Italy in a bar with, very late at night with all the horns going off, and we watched Switzerland in a huge square with 3,000 Swiss fans. It was a real fun experience, and the kids are now 100% hooked. My son thinks he's going to come to Manchester and go to an academy and play.
It's easy, Sam. It's easy. So nobody else wants to do it. You just rock up and roll in the team. I'm telling you,
there's no competition in the youth football. I'm pretty sure the rest of Europe were cheering on Spain, so I'm pleased we had a couple of stragglers cheering on England in the US. But yeah, it's not coming home. Back to you, Nick.
Okay, good stuff. And I should have said at the outset as well. Sam's coming from Pennsylvania. Storytelling. Where are you, sir? You're not in the never sunny UK.
No, I'm in a place I go to every year. I'm in Turkey, so a few miles. This really is quite an international show this time, isn't it? From the US to Turkey to the dark end of North Watford to wherever Hart lives. Let me just, I'll shoehorn the idea of this holiday into investment advice, because we go to the same place on holiday with my other half and my children every year, the same hotel at the same time of year. And some might say it's a bit dull, it's a bit boring. It's a bit like buying a global equity index fund. It's a bit dull, but guess what? It does the job. It just works for us. There's something for everyone. We all enjoy it. My children have grown up coming here, so when they first came here, they were young, they were toddlers. Now they're much older, and it's just one of these places that ticks all the boxes for all of us. So on the basis that if it ain't broke, why try to fix it? We come back to the same place every year. And for anyone who's been listening to this podcast for a year, I'm pleased to announce that, because I did record the podcast in this very room 12 months ago. It must have been whatever episode that was. And if you haven't heard it, go back or maybe just give it a miss, because there was a smoke alarm in the room, and it was one of the battery had run out. So every 60 seconds it was a beep. and I didn't think it would come through. I didn't think it'd get picked up on the mic, but it did. And there were people who were listening to the podcast.
Everyone was
walking around. They thought it was in their own homes. They were going around trying to change the batteries in their smoke alarms at home. So I'm pleased to report that all smoke alarms are working. Batteries are full and up to date. So quite an international show this time.
Excellent.
Back to you, Nick.
Okay, great stuff. So I think, Samantha, you said you listened to our most recent episode, so I'm going to put you on the spot here, or maybe not. But in episode 48, the Trap Pack, we're talking about the award season and awards for financial advisors. I'm sure in the USA, your RIAs have big awards as well, where they can put things up on the wall to show their clients they were voted best XYZ in this category and blah, blah, blah. And we were kind of scathing about them. Well, lo and behold, in the last couple of weeks, the Real Advisor podcast has somehow won its first award. And we paid a lot of money.
And now you're the biggest fans of awards.
Oh, awards. We love awards.
Absolutely love them. We haven't actually got the trophy. It's winging its way down from the Northwest to us, hopefully. But bizarrely. So, Andrew, describe what the award was and describe why you weren't there for the first time ever.
I believe it's called the Basel Awards, or Basel Awards, that they do at the Next Gen Planners Conference every single year. I think I've been for the last 7 years, but I missed this one out because I had a couple of prior engagements. But yeah, this year she did send me an email saying, am I coming? And I said, no, I'm busy, etc. Anyway, we won an award. Someone collected the award that none of us knew, which was interesting. But anyway, yeah, we won an award, so that's all good. So thank you very much, Next Geners.
It was a perfect trap type situation. We didn't even know we'd entered the award. We won the award and no one was there to collect the award.
It was pure shambles.
It was just
an
absolute shambles.
Our phones just lit up from like random people that were in the audience. Like, are you guys here?
Yeah.
No.
There we go. Sorry, I had to find
absolute shambles.
There we go. One more time.
Absolute shambles.
In the audience, of course, was Amelia, who was another guest Trap Pack host. They could have given the award to her, but they didn't. So never mind.
Anyway.
Okay, all good. We are now the award-winning Trap Pack. So, Sam, you have got a study. Oh God, Alan will like this because AI is his thing as well. Samantha, tell us about the Northwestern Mutual study.
Yeah, I just saw this over the weekend. Someone else had shared it, I think, on Twitter, and then X. Sorry, I can never get used to saying X. I don't know if you do that. So it was from Northwestern Mutual, and there's a lot of good data in the study overall. They broke it down into different areas, but they had a question over who do you trust more in different scenarios, AI or humans? And, for all the buzz about AI overtaking everything, the questions were like creating a retirement plan, asking a financial question, just asking a question and getting a correct answer. Managing a budget, providing financial savings tips, all these different questions. Who would you trust more? And humans won out significantly across the board versus AI. And, obviously I think it's still so new. It's the Wild West. Things will change as time goes on, but it still just goes to show the trustworthy factor of AI. And I thought that it was interesting, the number of people actually, though, who also said they didn't know who to trust, or both the same. So humans were getting about 50% overall. So about 50% of people, they just don't even know who to trust with their financial questions at all, whether it's a human or a robot.
Wow. Sorry, if you said this and I didn't listen to it, I apologize, Sam. Were these people being interviewed, were these clients of advisors, or is that not known?
So there was a mix. So there was a significant number of people who currently work with an advisor, and then a bunch of others who are in the process of looking for one. I think they said of the people interviewed, 38% were currently looking for an advisor. And actually, that was another tidbit that was interesting. So they said over time, historically, the average age when someone engages an advisor for the first time in the US is just about 40. But that is significantly changing now with this next generation starting around 29. So almost a whole decade earlier.
Okay.
That is interesting. I used to always think it's about 47 people sought retirement advice, if that makes sense.
47%?
No, age 47.
Oh, age 47.
Prior to that, they're busy with, family, work, debt, mortgages, stuff. And then they wake up one day, like 47, and think, Jesus, I actually might live to 100. What am I going to do about this?
The challenge with a lot of these surveys is if they're asking binary questions, to who do you prefer? And surely the answer is a tech-enabled human. That's got to be
which is all of us, really.
The best solution and the more...
Right.
I mean, the analogy I always think about and things like this is, I believe it's possible for a civilian aircraft, to fly across countries without a human pilot on board. They have the technology to take off, land, and do everything. But I'm not going to be first in the queue to get on one of those planes without a pilot, without a human being. But I'm also not going to be keen to go on if it's got no technology on it either. So that's kind of where we're headed to.
They had some interesting stats in there. They said 40% of the people they surveyed are either somewhat or very trusting of AI taking over for umpires and referees in professional sports. And 35% said they would be comfortable with it taking over for a nurse collecting information like medical histories at a doctor's visit. And so they went through they kind of benchmarked it against other industries. And it was interesting. Finance was still one that was lowest of the low. Like, people were more comfortable having AI be their nurse than their financial advisor.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen studies on things like radiology, where historically you've had a human being looking at a scan, looking at some details.
Computers are way better now, aren't they?
Computers they're far better than. Excuse me. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, Karen.
Cleaners.
Classic.
Right, nudging on.
Oh no, put your camera on. Nudging on. Alan, if you're still there, Alan, you're next on the topical tidbits, my friend. So reflections on episode 48.
Okay, well
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right.
48.
Stage Bond.
Yeah, I was. I thought I'd just spend a few moments because I think the previous episode when we talked about this whole thing about attitude to risk and what actually is risk and the confusion that seems to be very much part of our sector between risk and volatility and all those sort of things. So we put out the episode. There was obviously a lot of commentary on social media, and I was kind of surprised, I must say, there's quite a lot of pushback from advisors saying, don't necessarily agree with you. And someone was saying, we measure volatility we talk to clients about risk, and I was saying, how do you measure? What is your measure of risk? How do you define it? How do you explain it? And somebody said, well, annualized volatility. We use something called dynamic planner. I think it was something like that, which again, full confession, I don't know it. I don't use it, haven't used it, but they were saying the annualized volatility is what we use to build our investment portfolios. So in other words, a 12-month cycle, and if something sort of is too volatile in terms of up and down, then they might not be able to recommend it to a client who's expressed, an aversion to risk. And it's this kind of weird mixture. And it reminded me, the thing we talk about, and a study comes out of the US, I think it's the JP Morgan study, and they put it out quite regularly. And they've got I think it's the S&P, but it probably applies. I think there's a FTSE one as well. And it shows the intra-year declines in any year, the average intra-year. So during the course of any 12-month period, from peak to trough, the average is, 12, 14%, something.
Minus 15 now. It used to be 14.8.
Yeah, minus 15. So in any given average year, that's what you're going to have. And so that is going to preclude people from investing in equities. If you say, I can't, over a 12-month cycle, I couldn't stand if my portfolio fell by 15%, even though it recovered, even though very often you end the year higher, up,
frequently up,
then you're going to deny yourself access to as we call it, the greatest wealth creation machine in the world, which is global equities. Exactly. I must say, I was a bit surprised by advisors. Obviously, you're well-intentioned, and everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But I was surprised by the pushback I got.
I mean, the pushback's not surprising. There's certain things you talk about on social media and everyone just kicks off about it. Active, passive, fees, attitude to risk, etc. They're, sort of honey traps for advisors, aren't they? The other thing as well, some people push back with you were saying about, but what would a client do in March 2020? Well, loads of clients were in March 2020 and none of my clients did anything because it was a temporary decline. I know it was an extreme temporary decline, extreme temporary advance, but what did your clients do? People that comment on it? Hopefully nothing, because again, they didn't crystallize a permanent loss. It's riding this stuff out. It's anyway, it will be.
I just got to link a couple of conversations here. The last ones that Sam raised about that research and the technology and the AI, and I think what we are trying to do, part of the sort of narrative around this podcast, is explain that this is as much an art, possibly more of an art than it is a science. The science and the spreadsheets and the AI machines and all those things and those dynamic planners or whatever they're called will tell you the data. They say this portfolio fell by 30% in 2020, whatever was good. But the art is that uniquely human part that we all show up and do. We have healthy adult conversations with our clients and we remind them. And honestly, if you're not doing that, then AI will disrupt you. If all you are doing is repeating what it says on the spreadsheet or whatever, then you will get disrupted.
So many problems in this business exist in spreadsheets, but they don't exist in real life. That is the problem.
Well, don't you also think, though, that one of the issues is what people say they want or say they're going to do is drastically different from what they actually do? So you could ask somebody, how much risk can you tolerate? And their answer is obviously very different than when they're feeling it. And the same thing with implementation. I saw a study the other day, and it's going to escape me, but it was something crazy, like more than 50 or 60% of recommendations that an advisor gives do not get implemented in general because the person leaves the meeting and they're like, this sounds great, but then they don't actually do it. And so I think that that's a huge part of it.
That's horrendous.
I can't make you do it.
That's terrible. Over half of the recommendations don't get implemented. Blimey, that's a different world.
I'll find it. I'll look it up real quick.
And also DIY platforms, obviously, clients can make direct mistakes because there's low friction between them and mistakes. Having an advisor there's high friction between the client and the mistake. And we've got to be proud about that. There's high frictions to lots of stuff with an advised sort of service, but that's good.
This was it was an FA Mag article. It said 70% of clients implement less than 20% of recommendations.
Wow. That's some bad advisors then.
Yeah.
I mean, but as Alan said, this art versus science thing is a big thing for me. I think a lot more of it than we realize is art than science. And if you're the trusted advisor, clients will do whatever you tell them because it's you telling them. It's Samantha Russell telling them. It's Nick Lincoln. They don't understand what we're talking about half the time, and they never will understand it. But they're just mentally, they're just saying, "Okay, Nick has told me to do this. We trust Nick. We're just going to do it." I mean, I don't get pushback on any of my recommendations, really. Maybe when you're cutting your teeth, when you enter the profession and you're learning how to phrase things and frame things and so forth. But after a while, it's almost a red flag if a client doesn't take up a recommendation. It's like, well, we're not going to work together because if I keep on giving you my best advice and you keep on declining it, there's no relationship there. I don't care what the fee is. I don't care about anything else. We don't have a working relationship. Therefore, it's over.
You are a very mature advisor, Nick, in every sense of the word, my friend.
You know, Nick, I mentioned there's a book I read. I might use it in future as a culture corner. Book I've read over here by a guy called David C. Baker. So he's not in our industry. He's a consultant. You know, he advises companies on all sorts of things. And he's a solo advisor, consultant. He's written lots of books. And I sent it to you, Nick. You should read it. It's very Nick Lincoln-esque, I think it is, because it's kind of my way or the highway. But there's an entire chapter about being an order taker. And in other words, not being an order taker. There are some consultants, call it advisors. The client says, I want this. And they go, okay, I will go and get that for you. Instead of going, hang on a minute. Why do you want this? Why do you think that's good? And I've got a different professional opinion. And I think you should do something else. And those are the best advisors. Those are the best consultants. And there isn't a lot of value in being an order taker and executing on a client who doesn't know, by definition, can't know as much as you do, can't have as much experience.
The robots and AI will eat you alive. They're designed to take orders and process them and execute them.
They always get it wrong, yeah.
It's really interesting, too, from a marketing perspective, how many people come to a marketing agency or company and they're like, this is what I like. This is what I want my website to look like. This is going to be all about me. And they totally miss the mark of it doesn't matter what you like. The whole point is what will the people you're trying to attract respond to? And they don't, they almost think of marketing and their website and their logo and all these different elements as just more about art on the wall or something that they like, that they want to look at. And they totally miss the point of designing to capture the audience you're trying to attract.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, so 22 minutes in, time is flying by. A quick one here, Sam. You're welcome to tune out for this for the next 2 minutes because it concerns UK taxation, which is not quite as horrendous as your taxation in the IRS, but it's still very complicated. And there's a good software package that I found through one of the members of the IFA forum. Have I mentioned the IFA forum? tiny.cc/IFA forum. Thank you, Nick Evans. It's called not IRS, but IRIS or IRIS. Again, not to be confused with IRES, which was the back office package. IRIS. I'll put a link to the social channels. Basically, it does tax returns for you. It's £10 a month. And it's just, if you've got clients and they've got income from, they're encashing units from a GIA, so there are dividend implications and capital gains tax implications. If they're taking their state pension, maybe they've got a business still, they're taking salary and dividends. It just works it out for you in the order that things get taxed. And it's becoming more important now than ever. We're not accountants. We don't pretend to be accountants. But if you can show a client a copy of their self-assessment before the event, more or less, which you can do if you just make the estimates about their incomes and so forth, it's really neat. And it lays it out in the same order as a client's self-assessment. £10 a month, really nice tax planning tool.
Sorry, just to clarify, Nick, do you use this as a professional? You come across a client in a certain situation, you pump the numbers in, it gives you some information that
I just want to know that what my understanding of how capital gains tax interacts with the dividend allowance, interacts with the savings allowance. With savings interest now becoming a meaningful thing for the first time in 15 years. Clients are like earning thousands of pounds potentially from their savings income. Well, of course, if you're a high earner, that can take your income over the 100K, which eats into your personal allowance. And it's just things like that you just forget about because it's not been relevant for years and years. So you're just putting that into a bit of software that breaks it all down for you. I mean, Voyant can do it, but it's not designed to be it's just not user friendly to look at.
Standalone.
So Iris, I would definitely recommend spending £10 a month on that. And yes, not the IRS, Sam. My parents used to work in the US, Sam, and my dad still gets. He left 20 years ago. He still gets nasty correspondence from the IRS, so, which you will get.
They have such a great reputation.
They are very invasive.
Okay, so Ultra. The next thing on the topical tidbits. Yes, the JP Morgan Guide to Retirement.
I'm not sure if this has cropped up on the show before. It probably has, but it comes out every year. The famous JP Morgan Guide to the Markets comes out quarterly, US, UK, Europe versions, I believe. The JP Morgan Guide to Retirement is, again, retirement planning information overload. So it's worth scrolling through. It's 53 pages long. So there's a few pages that will take your eye. The one that sort of hits me quite between the eyes, and all my clients that we look after really, is a typical 65-year-old couple today, non-smokers and in excellent health. The chance of one of them getting to 90 is 73%. Again, this needs to be factored in when you're having grown-up conversations about attitude to investment risk. When you're 65, the money does not stop being invested. It's still got multi-decades ahead of itself. It still needs to be invested accordingly. So yeah, there's various bits of information in this JP Morgan Guide to Retirement. As I say, it's annually at the moment, and the 2024 one might have come out a few months ago, but I just came across it recently, and it's worth a few minutes for you to scroll through. Any points on that?
Yeah, it is very good. They put out a lot of good material, great use of imagery, graphics. You can grab what the point is they're trying to make really quickly. You could use it with client materials, I think, quite well. I always think, and again, I did pick this up from the Right Honourable Nicholas Lincoln some years ago, that these averages of life expectancy and so on, you can assume that your clients will on average live, let's say, 5 years more than these, which are national averages. Our clients tend to be more affluent, tend to live in better areas, look after themselves. So the percentages or the expectations or the life expectancy are likely to be more than.
Sorry, just to hammer it home, the study's picked up on that point. So a 65-year-old couple, typically one of them's getting to 90, it's 43%. But however, if they're non-smokers and in excellent health, most of our clients, let's just assume that it's 73%. So they factored that in. That's why I sort of highlighted that point. But yeah, good point, Alan.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next one is me. So, well, Sam, you might even know this story, but you'll certainly know about what Powerball is, which is the sort of state-funded lottery.
Oh, yes.
Yes, and this was an article that appeared in the Wall Street Journal, which I do subscribe to. It's really good. It's $14 a month or something, and I put a link to it in the so-called show notes. And I think you can access it because they give you a free link to share every few days, and that's should be an open link. Anyway, this couple, Minnesotan couple, Lutheran, so religious people, they won 60 million, 60 on the Powerball. Are you familiar with this story, Sam? You might haven't.
I actually haven't heard it yet. No.
Okay, so they won 60 million and they lost a grandchild to some horrible disease, Krebs disease, and they thought, you know what, we're going to put some of our winnings towards a foundation to look into research into this. They gave an advisor, a local advisor, just some mum and pop sort of shop guy working for an insurance company, 26 or 28 million of their 60 million winnings to set up a trust fund to do research into this. Anyway, this guy, and this will resonate more with you perhaps, Sam, than with us, he bought a series of variable annuities way back when, with big ongoing fees, big upfront commissions, an absolute shit show. Long story short, years later, that $28 million was worth $26 million. It actually declined in the face of a soaring bull market, soaring S&P. The wife, she's passed away. It's just an absolute nightmare of just a story of incentives and conflicts. And this guy was not a fee-based advisor. He was getting paid through the variable annuities to recommend this tripe. And it's a charity as well, Sam. So my understanding is that variable annuities aren't even that good from a tax point of view for charities. You don't get.
I was just going to say that it's very interesting that they would fund anything for a foundation with a variable annuity.
It's horrible. And just to compare, the advisor concern's taken his own life, so he's not here to defend the advice he gave. So it's just a 60 million. They gave half of it to this advisor. Conflict of interest. We always think the world we're living in is good people, good intentioned people. There are conflicts all the time, but you just need to minimize the conflicts to be able to give good advice. But there are always going to be conflicts, and we think that most of us do that really well. But there are still a large swathe, a large cadre of advisors out there who are doing things the old way and doing it badly. And that's
I think you hit on a thing though, like where I think one of the things that's so confusing for consumers is there's so many different people with so many models of business, but they're all called financial advisor. And so to the consumer, how do you tell the difference? There was a really good study from the Bank of New York Mellon Pershing, and they said that for the average consumer, it was like 68% cannot tell the difference between the different varieties of advisors, how they get paid, incentives. it's complicated for us in the industry. I can't imagine what it's like for somebody outside who knows nothing about what to look for.
I would have thought the percentage would be higher, like 88%, 98%, 68%.
Well,
It's quite low.
Yeah, I know. But it is just very telling. You know, those people probably had no idea what to even look for and how to find somebody who they could trust.
Well, what's surprising, though, is I would have thought that the organizers of the Powerball, which is a lottery, would have a panel of approved advisors, like they do in the UK, for example. In our national lottery, there is a group of, I don't know, 10 or 20
I think
organizations.
Close Brothers had the tie, and again,
I know that Grant Thornton had it for a bit, and some others. I think it's been shared around. I know one advisor who picked up a lot of business. I don't know if he still does, and some huge wins, some like incredibly, £100 million win type things.
Are you going to be pitching for the lottery advisory panel, Nick?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'd want it. Would you? I really am not sure I'd want it, because you're dealing with people. I imagine if an idiot like me got £100 million or something, it'd be like, right, down the boozer, and I don't care what you tell.
This is a real issue, because it's a huge psychological issue, because this is this famous thing, sudden wealth,
sudden money,
and it's sudden wealth, and it's not like someone who's worked for 25 years building a business and having an exit. This is like yesterday, I was living in a trailer park, and today I've got, and some of there's a $1 billion winner. Some guy won over $1 billion in the Powerball thing in the past. It's huge numbers, and it needs a lot of help, support, psychological advice, any number of things.
I mean, a lot of these people who come to this in massive amounts of money, it always ends up in booze, drugs, hookers, and that's just the upside. So,
all right, this is English humor. From Sam's giving a straight face there, thinking, "When's the punchline?"
To get that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Let's move on. Ultra.
I don't know if Alan's come across this company, advisoryai.com. Very early for me to check these.
Yeah.
Check this company out.
What would you like to share?
What would I like to know about them? Yeah. Have you looked into them?
Yeah.
Any good?
Oh, this is dynamic listening. This is dynamic.
I thought you'd added it to it because you've done a lot of research.
They look very interesting. It's all part of this new AI software offering for advisors. So yeah, they're joining the pack.
Yeah, there's a plethora of these, and I think this is one of the issues now. It's like any emerging technology, you've got to, in my opinion, choose one and stick and run with it, and not be, every time a new one pops up, we're going to move to this, to that. Yeah. We've sort of nailed our colours to the mast, which I've mentioned before. Saturn AI, they're doing some great things. I love the founders there.
Likewise,
great guys. And there's plenty out there. I keep an eye on things when they evolve. I haven't seen anything. Everyone's trying to fix the problem, the so-called problem, and it is an issue right now of how do you have a client meeting and then gather the notes, look at the action points, segregate information, which is sort of soft facts and hard facts, all that stuff. And there's an absolute time saving in doing that. And Saturn does it. And I think Advisory AI, and as quite a few others do it as well. And the challenge is to build the entire ecosystem from start to finish. But fix one problem at a time, I think. And if something pops up that does fixes an entirely different problem that maybe isn't on Saturn or some of these other companies' roadmap, then of course we would have a look at it. But yeah, it looks interesting, and it's great. It's great for the industry. It's great for our sector. We love innovation. We've been denied really good innovation in technology for decades, really. So seeing these things come up is great news. So yeah, shout out to Advisory AI.
Okay, storyteller. Finfluencers, which is not a real word, like 10xing is not some real bloody word.
Finfluencers.
But no, you spelled it finfluencers. I've been really careful to read it.
I think I was on my second margarita at the time. I added it to the docket. No, this again, there is one thing. I've got a bit more time in my hands over the last couple of weeks, so I've been spending more time on X than I probably should have been. And I see these people that pop, which are just complete. You just look at it and you think, you want to just delete it, but then you see it's had 4 million views. It's had 700 retweets. It's been saved by loads of people. There was just this one, and there's lots of them. This one that caught my eye. Some guy just says, and it probably is a guy, because it's an anonymous. It's just a Finn name. influencer name. Why don't you just, if you had 2 million, he said like deposit rates are paying 5.25%. If you had $2 million, you could just invest that and live off 250,000 a year.
Oh yeah, this went viral. I saw this
risk-free. Yeah, you saw it on my LinkedIn. I posted on LinkedIn.
Yeah, but surely it's intentionally, incorrect.
He did say that. Well, he did subsequently say I was doing a satire.
Much later. By which time, though? Because who's going to retweet that?
Save that? Hooked you line and sinker.
But a lot of people saved. Why would you save that? What do you call bookmark it? If you knew just a joke, why would you bookmark a joke? I mean, and I think ultimately, and maybe that was more extreme, but there's plenty of this around. I think that I just read the other day. I don't really follow Instagram, but there's a lot of finfluencers on Instagram, and there's a few of them. You might know more, Mr. Ultra, and we'll talk about your social media developments in a short time. But I can't remember this. So, I mean, I'm just so old, I don't even know the names of these people. They're like someone who's been in a soap opera or Love Island or something. But anyway, they've been promoting contracts for difference and all sorts of shady trading things. And people look up to these individuals and they say, well, if they're doing it, I'm going to buy, I'm going to invest, and they get wiped out. It's a real problem we've got right now because I don't think regulators are able to deal with it. They're not regulated by definition.
Like
so how can you stop somebody from just saying something?
Overwhelming, the amount of information.
It's overwhelming. It's a problem. So,
okay, we got to get through this quickly. Andy, you're on TikTok. Is that what we need to say? Can we move on to the next point?
Following on from influencers. I've started a TikTok channel, so if anyone's on TikTok, check me out. Maven Advisor. I'm known as the No BS Financial Advisor. Again, signal through the noise. It's a little bit of a joke, but I'm giving it a good crack. So I'm going to try and do my 30 months on TikTok. I'm trying to do a video a day. Anyway, check it out.
Maven Advisor. What you should do is just go find all the bad advice. I've said this would be a great strategy. You know how you can respond to other people's videos? Just
like an overlay.
But every day, do an overlay. Here's why this is wrong. Maybe everybody can watch you just, break down all the reasons everybody else's advice is so bad.
Sam, do you think that's a legit strategy for an advisor to go after? Do you think there's business to be had on TikTok? I mean, I know a lot of people use it.
I do.
Yeah? I
mean, it's funny. My parents, my mom specifically, she probably is on TikTok an hour a day in the morning while she drinks her coffee. Right. And all of my
I wonder where the views are coming from Pennsylvania.
And I think because the videos are easy to share on Facebook, which is where a lot of that age group hangs out. Yeah. So then they would try to click them, and it's in order to view, you need to sign up on TikTok. So then they all create TikTok accounts and they just get sucked in. I think
it's known to have by far the most powerful algorithm. I know it's just
evil.
Yeah.
Evil.
Okay. Thinks of it. What's next?
Okay. Right. Back to our guest, Sam Edelman, Rick Edelman, or Rice Delman, as he says on his podcast.
It's Edelman Financial Engines. Yeah, they do a report every year, the Wealth in America report. This one just came out for 2023. But the delta between wealth and worry. And I thought this was really interesting. They looked at what level of assets do you need to feel wealthy versus what level of assets do you need to never worry, to feel like you could never worry about money, which I feel like doesn't matter how wealthy you are, you get to a point, then you just worry about losing your money. But that was the question. And it was interesting because they said that the delta depends greatly on where you are in life. So the difference is highest for those in their 30s and 40s, where being worry-free takes significantly more money, about $1 million, to never feel like you have to worry about money. But then once you get older, it flip-flops, right? So for those in their 60s and beyond, it takes more money to feel wealthy than it does to actually be worry-free. So you need less money to just feel content and enjoy your life. And I think this is just interesting for a lot of people who are helping people plan for retirement. A lot of time, obviously we need to have the assets to make sure we can take care of our medical issues and live in our home and all those things. But so much of what makes somebody feel less worried in retirement comes down to so many other psychological factors, having community, having hobbies, having purpose. So I just thought that was an interesting piece of that study.
Okay. Thank you. It's a bizarre pictogram graph, isn't it?
It's hard to get your head
I'm not
around,
mathematically minded at all. I'm looking at that thinking, It looks like a dinosaur, doesn't it? Sort of a brontosaurus that's reaching over to a lake.
It's very creative of you, Nicholas.
Yeah. And also, there was a subsequent...
Oh, there was just another part of it where they asked people, what are your top concerns right now? And, coming in at number one was inflation, 84%, current political environment, 80%, possible recession, 78%, global conflict, 77%, all the normal things.
Yeah, rinse and repeat.
Yeah. And it's not on this graph, but in the US specifically, it said, if you could have an advisor, though, help you with anything, I thought it was this one, sorry, it wasn't. What would you want them to help you with? And instead of talking about any of these things, it was reduce taxes.
Always comes back to it. Always comes back to taxes.
Definitely
okay, thank
taxes.
you for that. In a similar kind of vein, the Schroders Adviser Survey has come out. I'm not sure if Schroders is a brand name in the US, Sam. It's a very old UK fund management group, one of the oldest ones.
Sure.
And they publish an annual survey. I'm going to be a bit bullish here. I'm going to step off the fence for once. Apparently 276 advisors took part in this, and what a bunch of window lickers. Apparently of these 270, and if any of them are listening to the trap right now, do yourself a favour, have a good word with yourself. Of these 276 advisors, 80% think the British ISA is a good idea. Sam, again, I'm not going to bore you with it. It's an insane idea from the previous administration, which the new Labour government, I think, is going to put into place. 80% of the advisors think it's a good idea. Wrong. And then they were asked, how are your clients feeling about investing? And apparently 41% of clients are feeling bullish and 10% are feeling bearish. No one cares how clients are feeling about investing. We don't ask them the question. Who asks their clients, how do you feel about investing? We're telling them to invest. This, again, it comes back to this order. I've got no idea what any of my clients think about investing at any stage. I'm not interested. And then finally, 47% of advised clients rank capital loss as their number one concern. Insane. There is no loss. There is no loss if you don't sell. There's only loss if you sell. Capital loss.
No. Capital loss is a fair concern, but you're talking about now. If they were invested in a global equity portfolio, is capital loss a high?
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah,
a high probability. You're correct, but capital loss is a fair concern. Capital loss is a fair concern with your money.
Right. So my point is well made.
No, it's not well made. You're conflating issues as usual.
There's a thread going through all this. If you go back to the unfortunate investor in the US, this Powerball money, he said capital loss. And some of the other, this conversation we had last time about risk versus volatility. There are people who may have capital losses, and this is the whole point. This again comes back to this art that we're talking about. You can't have capital loss in a globally diversified equity portfolio.
Yeah, held long term by a disciplined grown-up investor.
Well, you can only have a capital loss when you decide to sell your assets
during a temporary decline.
Yeah. During a temporary decline, it's the only way you can have it. So, what does Nick Murray say? It's a human achievement that the market itself isn't capable of. So that's the thing we're dealing with. And again, when you read these surveys, and the advisors are giving the answers, it does create some concern.
That was the point. That was the point I was making and made very well. Next on the docket, storyteller.
Well, we've got a theme going through this, and again, we're using this, and we're sort of towards the end of our topical tidbits, but we just pick up stuff that's been in the news recently. And this was something I don't know very much about these companies involved, but I know they're big. They're big brands. There's a company called Tavistock, and they are what they are. They're an advisory firm, big one of the biggest in the country, I think, and they've effectively outsourced their portfolio investment management that they recommend on behalf of their clients to another outfit who I hadn't heard of before, but they're an investment manager called Titan. And it seems that they've had a bit of a...
You underestimate the power of the dark side.
But it would appear that they've had a bit of a dust up. It's ended up in court. One decided to sue the other, and then the other has countersued them, and they've now gone public about the reasons they're countersuing. It was actually in City AM, which is a kind of a national consumer newspaper, the other day, and I put the link to the article, and I was just browsing through it as you do. So I was looking at the Titan fund performance. Bear in mind, there must be hundreds of thousands of clients involved in this, and it lists all the funds: the Acumen Portfolio 4, Portfolio 5, Portfolio 6, At least they haven't named them, the moderate or the high risk or whatever.
Balance,
quartile ranking, fund rank, percentile ranking. And I'll just read them out. The first fund is 100th percentile ranking. The second was 100th. The third is 99th, 199. They are in the bottom 1% for all these funds.
How could you even do that? That's an art.
It is practically impossible to do that. It's a skill to be for every one of their funds. I mean, what the hell were they doing? That is just
massively high fees and trading.
We're joking about it, but again, as I always say, it's not their money, it's not our money, it's families' wealth, it's their long-term financial security, all those good things. It is an absolute mess. God, this will be a big court case costing millions, no doubt paid for by shareholders and investors. Yeah. It's awful, and you didn't have to do that. That's the point. The answer is very simple to all these things. It's really simple. And it's in front of your eyes. If you bought a simple, let's say, a Vanguard fund or similar, you would not be in the 99th percentile, the 100th percentile for all your funds. It's ridiculous.
Do you think Titan are better DFMs than posh DFM?
Don't go there. No.
Neck and neck.
Yeah.
Right, next up, Nick, over to you.
Next up, very quickly, don't need to comment on it particularly, but there's an article by our friends of the show, Banker on Wheels. Careful how you say that. Banker on Wheels. Useful guide to indexes and comparisons. There are all these indexes that we have, the FTSE ones, the MSCI ones, Sam, which I'm sure you have in the States as well. And it just compares them all and breaks them down. And basically, if you have a portfolio that is global equities tilted perhaps to value and small cap dimensions, you want to be looking at the MSCI All World IMI Index, which has been around since 1995. There you go. Wow, that was interesting. Okay, final topical tidbit. Sam, don't laugh. We're 47 minutes into the show. The final part of the topical tidbits is Ultra with some Q2 returns.
I mean, we have so many US references today, and we've not shoehorned any of them in for Sam. And this is another US reference, a blog that I read called novelinvestor.com. Again, it's all data sort of stuff. He's come out with his 2024 Q2 returns. A couple of highlighted points on there. You can click the link in the show notes. Surprise, surprise, the top performing sector is information technology and communication services, and the third best is the S&P 500. But they're just saying there's only two sectors within the S&P 500 that have actually outperformed the S&P 500. It's a bit of an odd one to get your head around. The top countries, I'm going to read out the top three just for a laugh. Carl's not here. Denmark is the top performer, 23.96, followed by the Netherlands, then Ireland, then the S&P 500. What he did say was quite interesting in the opening article is AI is not like the internet boom that we had, because he's basically saying the AI wealth is concentrated in a handful of companies. The internet boom was hundreds, thousands of just completely made up shell, .com names or whatever. But obviously people like to make comparisons when there's a sort of recurring type theme. And again, 7 stocks control 30% of the S&P's wealth. It doesn't matter because you own them all when you own the index. So you haven't got to try and pick these winners with foresight because you can't do it. Whereas in hindsight, you become the owner of those companies anyway. So yeah, it's a decent link, novelinvestor.com, and it's in the show notes. That's it.
What's the S&P's up, 15% or something?
Yeah, the S&P's up, 15.69.
But the
first 6 months, Alan.
Yeah, first 6 months. But the S&P
15.29.
S&P 493, i.e. the other 493 companies excluding the Magnificent
correct.
7, is up about 3%. Roughly.
Yeah,
I know
the great
it doesn't
thing
matter.
is,
You got to be you own them all.
When you own a global equity portfolio, you own the beasts anyway. You haven't got to pick these beasts in with foresight. You own them in hindsight, which is brilliant.
That's right. You don't want the needle, you want the haystack. Okie dokie. Right, let's move on. We are 49 minutes. Good grief, save me. Let's move on to the meat and potatoes of the show. This is where we give one theme a damn good thrashing. And as we've got an expert from the US on the Trap show today in the form of Samantha Russell, an expert in the area of marketing and business growth strategies, that is going to be the subject we're going to thrash to death. I've got no idea who's going to lead this off. I'm going to leave the microphone silent now for someone to step into the void.
Over to our esteemed guest.
Well, let me just open it up. And in inimitable Trap style, we haven't really prepared Samantha very much for this, but she won't need to because she's a subject matter expert, aren't you, Sam? But I think if I were just to sort of get the ball rolling. Just if you were engaging as a brand growth marketing expert, if you were engaging if any one of us came to you and said, we really do want to grow the business. We've got everything in place. We've got a team. We've got advisors. We're doing okay, but we'd like to sort of double or treble our business over the next number of years. We've got a budget. What are the immediate sort of 2 or 3 things that most firms ought to really start doing? That's just a starter for 10. Where would you get going?
The first thing people come and ask me that question all the time. What tactics should we do? Should we start a YouTube channel? Should we have a podcast? Do we need to double down on creating a Substack or a newsletter of some sort? I always make people stop there first, though, and go back and say, before we talk about what marketing tactics we should engage in, I ask them the question, what about your business is marketable? Because most people don't have an answer to that question. They will say, I'll say, what makes you different from the other person sitting right next to you? And we've talked a lot about this in today's show, just in general, the idea of, you could put your money in a Vanguard fund and do pretty well. And so with the investment part arguably becoming so commoditized, so much is coming down to people choosing someone that they like, that they want to spend time with, that maybe makes them laugh, that they have cultural references with. Table stakes is doing a good job with the portfolio. And it's coming down to so many other behavioral things that are making somebody choose. So when I ask that question, what about your business is marketable? For a lot of people, they've been told for years and years, oh, you need to have a specific niche or a specific type of client you work with. And that really is a reason why, because
Sam, the word is niche. I'm sorry. Niche.
Okay. You're on team
right.
Niche. Because it makes your business, quote unquote, more marketable when you have something specific. Like there's a gentleman in the US and he's obsessed with being a fly fisherman. And he would go to Wyoming all the time and fish. And he started talking about it on his social media when he would do this podcast he had. And he started attracting other fly fishermen. So that's where the attraction started. And then it was like, oh, hey, I'm also an advisor. I help do these things. I'm arguably good at what I do. But it was being the fly fisherman that was, attracting people. With you all.
Yeah. I've heard that. I think that guy was on Michael Kitz's podcast, I think.
Yes, he was.
Yeah,
he was.
ages ago. Yeah.
So I guess my point is, though, asking that question, it can be really hard and uncomfortable for a lot of businesses because they might not really have anything. They've just sort of been getting by with doing a decent job for their clients, but now they want to go full force into this marketing campaign. And that's the question I would lead with.
Okay.
So,
okay.
but we can go from where we go from there.
We've just for the dear Trappist who is listening to this, maybe not watching. We've lost Mr. Smith. There's probably been some earthquake in Turkey, so we've lost Carl. He's on a floating pedalo in the Atlantic off the Portuguese coast, and we've lost Alan. All that was just been presented with this hotel bill, and given he's been there for 2 weeks, it's probably gone up by 3,000%, knowing the Turkish inflation rate, and he's having some sort of major heart episode in the meantime.
He'll be back.
Business growth. So myself and Ultra, myself and Andy, we both have small, compact businesses. Samantha, I'm very much a one-man band, and my business growth is really just organic growth, which is probably making your skin crawl just even thinking about it. But I just literally, it's referrals only. I don't have any advertising spend or anything like that. I have a website, but I don't want web trawlers coming to me. It's just there as a sort of front of house thing, so referrals can at least look at my site and see that I look vaguely competent. But my business acquisition strategy is just purely through referrals. What's yours, Andy?
Well, again, put that aside. Most advisors are entrepreneurial and want to grow their businesses, so marketing is something that they all have a sort of keen focus on. So I'm going to pass it back to Samantha to take us on the next step of the marketing journey. So yeah, what's your next thoughts, please?
Yes. So once you've got that, what about your business is marketable? The next step is crafting messaging. So again, I have all these people who will come to me and say, I want to create, this content or do this or that. And we'll go look at how they're talking about their self and their business and their customers or their clients. And it's all very we focused. We've been in business for 30 years. We have this track record. It's we. But if you look at a lot of psychology studies about what lights up the brain, like the reward center of the brain, where we feel really good about an interaction, the more you talk about yourself, the better you feel. And with consumers, the more it's, we don't really care what someone can do. We care what they can do for us. So we want to change all the messaging from being we and I focused about our firm to you focused. So an exercise I'll do with people is we'll look at their website or their LinkedIn post. How many times are you saying we or I? And how can we reword that to be you and make it all about the person that you're trying to serve? And it actually it's pretty difficult for people to get used to doing that. What I like to say is if you're going to go and you're going to book a night to go out on like a dinner boat cruise or something, right? And you're looking online at all the options and somebody's like, this is our boat and we've been doing this for 20 years and here's all of the specifications of the boat and the engine and the horsepower and the beautiful boat. Nobody cares. But another person who's like, this is what you're going to experience on this cruise and why it's going to be fun and how you're going to feel. And, it's all about the experience that you're going to have. That's the one you're going to book. And so a lot of advisors' marketing needs to be focused on the experience that the person will have. And it's hard because with compliance, especially in the US, outcomes can be really difficult. You can't really talk that much about this is what the outcome will be if you work with us. So we really focus on, can we use case studies? Can we use social proof? What have other clients experienced? And I know in the UK, it's easier. You can use testimonials a lot easier. That's where your focus needs to be, way more than on your qualifications, how long you've been in business, all of those things. Because truly at the end of the day, most people don't care so much. It's what can you do for me?
Okay, I'm going to wind up, Nick, and call it niche. If a firm doesn't have a niche or a niche, do you advocate that they get one, or do you think people naturally fall into having one? What's your thoughts on that whole area?
So if you really, really want to launch like a full-fledged marketing campaign and go really crazy and you don't have that big of a budget, then yes, that will be incredibly helpful to you to get one. I have seen people have great success. They've got a little bit more budget to spend. And by the way, the average firm in the US is only spending about 1 to 3% of revenue on marketing. And, lots of studies suggest it really should be more. If you really want to grow intentionally and see big gains, it needs to be more like 10%. So wow. Most people are not spending much to see the growth. But yes, having a niche is it's going to have that exponential growth factor. Initially, it's going to be a little less because you can't say yes to everyone. But then over time, as more and more people know you as the person who serves this group of people, you're going to get more referrals. And I always like to say, think of a magnet. In order for a magnet to work, there has to be a side that repels. So you have to repel some people in order to attract other people.
Okay, let's just say your ideal firm came to you and they were somewhat established, they were keen to grow, and they put a lot of value on marketing, and they said, yep, you got 10%. How do you distribute that? Where do you then go from there?
So one thing that I would tell people to stop spending so much money on actually right now is SEO. I'll flip the question a little bit. With AI, because we were talking about that so much, people are less and less going to be using especially in the coming years, going to Google and clicking on ads and things. And the research is even showing that Google's really nervous about how much revenue they're going to lose with this. And also the CTO of Google actually went to a tech conference recently and reported that their own research showed that 40% of the youngest generation, the under 30 crowd, now goes to TikTok or Instagram to look for things first before Google. Oof. So they're trying to make Google more visual.
Yeah,
you'll notice it.
Google's stranglehold on search, I feel, for the first time is vulnerable.
Yes.
Is it Perplexity's coming along, which is another search engine? Yeah, they've just made search really unenjoyable. And obviously when they switch the sponsored post from the right to the center, they've just pushed it too far, I think. But that's maybe another conversation. Yeah. Well, okay. So
don't worry about SEO as much. You have to have a main content pillar. one of the things is if you save all of your best thoughts and education for your clients, then your marketing strategy is a hope and a prayer that your clients are going to tell everybody else how great you are. And I know, for a lot of advisors, they have grown through referrals, but it really puts the ball in the client's court instead of in your control for how fast and quickly you grow. So if you want to grow faster and you want to be more in control of it, you have to have a content engine. So you all have this podcast. That's one way to do it. I tell people to pick what they're going to be most comfortable at. Is it going to be having an article, a newsletter, a blog, a YouTube channel? Honestly, it doesn't matter as much as you think. It's more about getting it out there. I like to push towards video just because...
And consistency, yeah.
And consistency. I like to push towards video just because we're all reading less long articles than we were before. And when you see someone's face, there's something called the mere exposure effect, that just the more times we are exposed to something, the more we report that we like and trust it. So just by virtue of seeing someone's face more and more, they will be considered more trustworthy. So the more video content that you have, arguably then, the more trustworthy you may appear.
So my TikTok channel is a great idea. Thank you very much for confirming
fantastic.
That. I know you are more of a digital expert, but yeah, just for the audience, what's your thoughts between the sort of split between digital and in-person type old school networking, seeing other professionals? What's your sort of slant on that?
I mean, I think the more you can do in person, the better. It just goes back to the idea that so many things now can be outsourced. We have more artificial intelligence. We have more abilities to do, to get things done with computers and machines. And so the people I've seen who are doing things really effectively are doubling down on experiences, whether it's, taking clients. We talked about the fly fisherman guy. I think he does like a trip now with his like top clients, hosting a cool event. But there's a lot of firms that also serve people all over the country. They're not just location based. So, having those unique experiences, there's something called that my friend Jackie Wilkie advocates for, called the family phone call, where she sets up a time to talk to the parents and invites their adult children to join them on the call to really engage that next generation. It makes it super personable. She has like a whole way that she suggests you go through it. But make it a big deal to say, we've been working together a long time. We really think it's important that you're clued in on what's going to happen. And that's a really personal one-on-one experience. They send something in the mail ahead of time to make it like a fun evening. I think like a little cocktail making kit or something. But those kinds of things become more and more important when anybody can create a newsletter and have AI write it.
Right. I think we sort of naturally ended up in my next question. Nick is 100% Zoom advisor. I'm sort of kicking around probably 80% of client meetings on Zoom. What's your thoughts for, again, the audience on being more focused on Zoom, less focused on Zoom? Would you work with an advisor exclusively on Zoom if you're looking for a new advisor?
My financial advisor's in Florida and I'm in Pennsylvania, so we never
You've never met them IRL? You've never met them in real life?
No, I have met them in real life, but I would be comfortable if I had it.
Fine, okay.
I think honestly, clients like being on Zoom. I mean, who wants to take time out of their day to drive to someone's office, sit there, deal with all that?
Exactly.
Like it's easier. Yeah, I think it's 100% fine to do Zoom only. And, even sometimes people don't want to have a big hour-long meeting even about things. Like they want to just be able to send you a text and say, can you give me an answer to this, right?
Yep.
Well,
So
I've made this point before, sorry, Sam, that I think Zoom has got rid of the need for chit-chat. You do still do the chit-chat, but I think when people drive, especially in a country the size of yours, people may drive hours to get to the advisor's office. The advisor may drive hours. When they get there, they feel obliged to fill up some of the time with just chit-chat, because otherwise the meeting could be over in 30, 40 minutes if it's focused. And so we had this way of padding it out at either end. But now with Zoom, you don't have that. So you just, you have the formalities, you have the niceties, but you just crack on. You just crack on with the stuff.
Well, even without meeting in person, I'll ask my advisor a question and he'll create a quick Loom or Veed video and put the screen up with, let's say we're talking about benefits or something. Here's what you got. Here's what to know about for open enrollment, and send it to me. And I don't even have to meet with them. I just watch it when I want. If I have a question, I can. So I think, the client appreciates it, especially people, at least in the phase of life we're all in, where you're still working, you got a lot going on. Like, it's the time that you could be spent doing something else.
It definitely favours the more tech-enabled advisors. Yeah, a lot of advisors I say, oh, no, I'm still seeing all my clients. I think they prefer to see me. I think, no, it's because you're really bad at tech, my friend. If you get on top of it, and give them an option, trust me, they don't want to see you.
Right.
Nobody wants to be stuck in a room with me. I know this from experience. Just a couple of points you raised there, Sam, and just this is maybe a misperception, but I think the perception in the UK is that compliance-wise, we have it far harder here than the USA.
No.
The USA, okay, because you mentioned it with testimonials. So testimonials are not a thing in the US.
I mean, so the rule came out that you can use them, but virtually the adoption is so low because nobody wants to be the first guinea pig, because they know that regulators are they left it so gray open for interpretation that it's going to come down to then lawsuits that fill in the blanks. And so people don't want to go first.
Also, the next question, I thought in the US, if let's say you wanted to become a client of an advisor, the onboarding process a lot faster and slicker? Like if you want to switch advisors, could they literally switch the money within a week? Let's say you had $1 million on some platform or whatever that most advisors used.
Yeah.
To go to advisor B, would it be quick?
It depends what custodian they use and how tech-enabled the advisor is. So there are some that can make it happen fast. There's others, the repapering would take a lot longer.
When you say repapering, it's still digital, just to push back on that.
Sorry.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, okay, cool.
Filling out all the forms, transferring who owns the assets. Now, if you're going from one advisor who, uses Fidelity to another advisor who uses Fidelity, it's a little bit easier. Okay, and there are a lot of advisors in the US that use multiple custodians for that reason. Right. They use them all. But yeah, I don't know how difficult it is there. The compliance difficulties here really come down to there's advisors who are independent registered investment advisors and advisors that are hybrid or with broker dealers that oversee their compliance. And if you're with a broker dealer, it really comes down to the person in the chair saying, yes, you can do that, or no, you can't. They're interpreting the law. And there's many of them that are very, very strict and conservative.
Fine. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the listeners in relation to marketing, or are we going to tie a bow in this? So over to you.
I've got a couple of points. If Sam, you can talk as long as you like, but I've got a couple of points just to come back to Sam on. So whatever you want to do, Sam.
Yep.
Go ahead, shoot.
Well, it's a pity that Storyteller has dropped out. Alan's dropped out of this episode of Trap. Hopefully he's somewhere out in the ether, because his nickname is Storyteller. Because he does like to talk a bit, Sam, but he's a great believer in his firm, Capital Asset Management, of the use of client stories. So what we do and what you do to a degree is intangible. We can't sit down with somebody and say, yeah, look, this is the vitamin D bottle that I will build for you at the cost of 5 cents a unit, and it's brilliant and it's plastic and it's got a lid and everything, and you can hear the things rattling inside. We can't show our potential customers that, our potential clients that. It's all IP, it's all ideas, it's all a bit ethereal. But if you can do stories and case studies of how you helped people out who are similar to the prospects in front of you, there's the whole concept of the avatar, the ideal client avatar as well, just building out a profile of people, of your ideal prospect, and helping prospects just say, oh yeah, so you helped Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and they were business owners and they were looking at retirement. That's just like us, isn't it? Yeah, just like us. And you did that for them. Very, very, very important to have a good cachet of stories, genuine stories. Yeah. And the other thing, which I really like, which I do go on about as well, is this magnet allegory, which you used. The idea that, and especially for younger Trappists listening to this, who probably feel that every client that says no is like a personal slight, it's a rejection. It's definitely not. It's just business, right? You have to be repelling. You have to repel. If you try and be all things to all people, you'll be nothing to anybody. You've got to have 100%. A strong conviction, a strong way of doing things your way. There's enough in the universe. I have an abundance mentality, and there's enough in there. Those people out there who need our help, they will find you, but you're going to repel. You're going to be that North Pole on the magnet, whichever one it is, that pushes away. And you want that. Younger advisors, you want clients, not everybody, because if you repel everybody, you've probably got a hygiene issue and you're probably quite unpleasant. But you need to repel a significant number of prospects who are coming before you, because you do not want to be all things to all men.
I'd say 80 to 90%.
You'll be a mile wide and an inch deep, and you'll be a busy fool. When I worked for my previous firm before I went out on my own in 2008, I loved a very good firm, lovely guys, but they just couldn't say no. They just could not say no. They'd take on anybody for anything all the time. Mm-hmm. And they were working crazy hours, and they were literally buried behind stacks of paper on their desk. And I looked at them and I thought, I want to become more repellent. My goal in life is to be a repellent individual. and I've worked on it for the last 16 years, and I've got it down to a T. So that was a
Yeah.
really good.
I think
You are
you
the
want
living
somebody
embodiment of it now, Nick.
you want somebody to read what you write or see your podcast or go to your website and say, yes, this person helps people just like me, and they self-qualify themselves rather than you kind of proving why you're great. Just by what they're reading and seeing about you, they know you're a good fit.
Well, I've got one final question for you, and then we can tie a bow on it, because I think Alan is probably in the Bosphorus bobbing about on his own now. AI, you mentioned AI and the writing of newsletters. I again, it's me. It's all about me, right? It's not about me, but it sounds like it is. I do think your voice is your own voice is very authentic. Whether it's in your meetings that you project who you are, you don't put on a facade, and when you write and when you communicate, you want the clients to almost hear it as Nick or Andy
100%.
or Samantha speaking to you. I don't think AI can do that. So you get these AI newsletters now. Well, what's your view on it? Obviously, AI is very quick at getting copy out there, but it's not from that person's. It's not in that person's voice. What do you think about that as someone who's a
I think it's perfectly fine to ask AI to summarize. Like a lot of the clients we work with, they'll have a newsletter that they do, and every single month they put out a newsletter, and or like week, it's 3 stories that they've read about and kind of their take on why their clients should pay attention to it. It's fine to go to AI and say, summarize this article, give me the most, the biggest points or whatever. But then you have to go in and make it your own, have a voice, and telling the story. I think that's the key. Like the one advisor I work with, one of his most popular parts of his newsletter every week is he includes a YouTube video from back when he was in, or a song from when he was in high school or college, like on this day when I was partying in the basement at my fraternity house, listening to this song. And his clients love like the music throwbacks. Another person, he's a big DIYer, and he has a little section of his newsletter where he puts a picture of his latest project, and he's always saying how his wife's so mad at him that he's destroying their house. But like something personal that will, and that's the part that people hit reply and comment on. It's not the whatever financial concept, it's the personal part.
Yeah, because it brings you to life. I think we should tie a bow on that, if that's okay, Sam, because we're
just on the AI thing, Nick. It's just enhancements in technology. We use voice to text to help us if we're putting an article together.
Yes.
We use Grammarly. We use spell checker. So me just putting an article that I've written that's quite rough and raw and putting it into an AI engine and saying, make this, sound a lot better. The outcome is not that different. So it's just an enhancements in technology. There's no point in having an extreme example of AI writing an article about some deep tax change that I'd never be interested in. That's me using the AI incorrectly. So if you use the software and the AI correctly, you can get a lot of value from it.
So your content is written by computer. Is that what you're saying?
My content is written by a computer.
I can't unlock the airlock.
Disclaimer.
I'm afraid not, Al.
How? Unlock the airlock. I can't do that, Dave. Okie dokie. But so, Sam, excellent. You're coming over. We haven't not finished in the show, but I'm going to mention it now because you're going to come over to the UK for the CISI conference later this year. You're speaking at a Timeline conference as well. So if you want to meet Sam in person, get along to those 2 conferences. I'm sure at one of those conferences there'll be a
heavy jacket.
There'll be a chap called Phil Bray who runs a good marketing agent in this company called The Yardstick, and he's very much about client testimonials. So if you meet Phil Bray, it'd be good for you to have a chat about that and just compare and contrast the differences. Okay, 73 minutes. Shoot me. I shouldn't say that. Don't shoot me. Don't shoot me. We are going to move on to the next part of the show, which is the Trappist questions, because I can see in my Nest camera that Post is at the front door. There she is, ringing the front door. She's hauling up the drive, the bulging sack of Trappist questions. We get Trappists to send in their questions via the pinned tweet, the pinned X. There is a link to submit your questions. Also in the so-called show notes, there's a link, and we go through these questions gradually. We're still working our way through them. These ones are, I think, from the start of the year in terms of when they were submitted to us. So we're going to go first. Let me just see who this letter is from. It's an old-fashioned letter with a stamp on it and everything. Opening it up with my letter opener. There we go. And this one is from Jake, and Jake's put his social handle in there. It's a LinkedIn address, so we'll put that in the so-called show notes. Hi guys, love the podcast and learning so much working my way through previous episodes. When answering another Trappist question in episode 19, Andy said, if you spent X years as a restricted independent firm, you are ready to go on your own. But how long is X? This is clearly subjective and depends on the advisor. But what do you think is a sensible length of time gaining client-facing experience in an employed role is before making the leap? You need to put some commas in here. The grammar's very poor on this. I can't pass it. Blah, blah. Anyway, how long before you make the leap, I think, is the question. You'll know when it's time to go, is my answer. There's never going to be a parting of the clouds and an angel's going to wing down and say, now is the time to go out on your own. And there's never going to be the perfect moment. When you think it's the time to go, and don't wait for all your ducks to be lined up, because they'll never be lined. There'll always be something giving you cause for concern. But the moment you think, I can do this on my own, that is the moment to go out and do it. And that could be 3 years working at another firm. It could be 13 years working at another firm. Just go and do not wait for a sign from heaven that all is aligned and the stars are aligned for you, because that moment will never come. You just got to go. Ultra.
Like all complex things in life, it depends. It depends on how old you are. It depends on your personal financial situation. It depends on how smart you are in building a business. And it depends on how sort of technical you are as an advisor. I'd say the minimum apprenticeship stage you should do working for another firm is probably 5 years, if I was pushed to give a number. But ideally, closer maybe to 8. It does depend. Some people have worked 2 or 3 years in a firm and left and set up on their own. Other people have spent 23 years at a firm and then left and set up on their own. So it all does depend on your personal situation. Just interpreting, reading between the lines, Jake, you sound quite young. So again, ideally set up on your own when you're young, when you don't have maybe children, high financial, personal burn rate. Again, it depends. Speak to a lot of people. Everyone's got a different answer. But yeah, if I was really pushed to answer your question, I'd say 5 years. Sam?
I'm always going to look at things from a marketing lens, and it can be difficult to get, new clients to trust you if you're a couple years in the business, you don't have a super long track record, and you don't have a lot of support behind you or people double and triple checking. So, if you can stay independent, but maybe be part of an organization where you can show that there's other people involved and doing back office things like that, that also can be really helpful. But I agree. I think, from the consumer perspective, they're going to want to see that you've got a track record of being in the industry for a while before they're going to hand over their life savings to you.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, in a cluster fudge of monumental cock-ups that besiege this show, we've lost Carl somewhere out in the Atlantic. Alan's floating about in the Bosphorus. Samantha, I think your AirPod microphone's dropped out, and now you're speaking through your computer microphone. So if you could re-engage your AirPod.
I think we've been on so long that they both are like dying, so I'm changing.
Okay. You might need to come a bit closer to the microphone if you can, but don't do it.
Good.
Don't do it so it's discomforting. Okay, thank you. Wow, right, it's all going on. If Alan was here, corner. He would. What would he say about this? He would say it's an absolute shambles. This is what he would say.
Absolute shambles.
There you go. He's back in the room.
Absolute shambles.
Good man. Okay, without any further ado, there we go, Jake. We've answered your question. Thank you for that question. If you think the time is right, just go ahead and do it. Would be, I think, the overarching advice. I think it's time we moved on without any further ado to what many people call Culture Corner. Now, Smithy's not here to do his, so we'll skip straight on. Yeah. Mine is NVIDIA. Sam, have you heard of NVIDIA? It's one of your small little tech startups, doing quite well.
Just a little one, yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, the story of the S&P 500 for the last couple of years, and via the Billions podcast, which is a podcast series that focuses on ETFs, which are, for various reasons, especially tax, are much, much bigger in the US than they are in the UK. The Billions series on ETFs focuses on leveraged ETFs. And not only can you put your money into NVIDIA, which even just doing that on its own would give me the willies, you can go into these things that increase the leverage, increase your exposure by 2 times, twofold, or even, God forbid, 2x. So an interesting look at that. And there are also ones where you can short NVIDIA the other way. To me, this is absolutely toxic, high octane, highly inflammable, speculative devices. I'm sure some fund managers have a need for them at the edges, but wow.
The NVIDIA 3X one, Nick, is one of the top buys on HL. So this is also a UK thing as well. It's rocking up. I think it's up 1,000% this year. The 3X NVIDIA 2024. You could have done with that, Nick.
It kind
You
of
could have
reminds
bought
me
with
of
that, my
like,
friend.
when you're betting on, if you're betting on sports, like what everybody's into the gambling apps now. I can't even think of the names of them, but you can it used to be you just bet on the game, who's going to win, maybe a little spread. Now it's like you can bet on anything. I feel like that's sort of what has happened sometimes with investing. Like they're just trying to keep it interesting, come up with new things just to have something to talk about.
Sam, how much of your personal wealth do you have in the NVIDIA 2 times leveraged ETF?
0.
That's the correct answer. Okay, moving straight on. And Samantha, we have 3 of your. You are taking advantage of your time as being a member of the Trap Pack. You've got 3 culture corners. Tell us about them.
Okay. So I don't have to go through all of them, but the Smartless podcast, I don't know if you've ever listened to that with, I can't think of there's 3 American actors and it's really good. But this one with Jeremey Renner, if you're not familiar with him, he's a huge actor. In the been in the Bourne series, right? All the things. And he had this near-death experience and he talked about it on this podcast and it has stuck with me for a while. It's not related to anything financial or investing, but it was so good. So it was just actually, you listen to something or read something for a while and you like can't get it out of your head. I have been telling everybody to go listen to this forever.
Oh, wow.
Have either of you heard it?
No,
Probably
I just clicked on it now.
So he was run over by a snowplow and basically died on the table for a while. And he had this moment of kind of clarity about what comes next. And I'm making it sound hokey, but when you listen to him talk about it, it was really, really good and interesting. So I loved that. And then this book, Alchemy, I don't know if you've ever read it by Rory Sutherland.
Sorry, Samantha, just to interrupt you very quickly. Alan said the internet is down, but he's back in a minute. When he comes back into the meeting, we'll just pretend we're winding up the show. Okay, so when he comes back in,
we are winding up the show. We're pretty much done.
Well, we've still got a few culture corners to go. So, sorry, the book.
Oh yeah, Rory's. This is an older book. It's been around forever, but I just reread it. Alchemy by Rory Sutherland. And one of the things that's really stuck with me there is the idea that there's so many problems in the world that necessarily you can't, he's talking about, for instance, with taxis and like when Uber came around, it wasn't solving the problem of, waiting for a taxi is annoying because we all want to get where we're going and waiting. That part is always going to be there. But because they created this map that allowed you to see exactly where the taxi is, psychologically, it makes it less frustrating to wait.
Moonshot,
yeah. And, he makes the parallel that in so many industries, you can't take away the pain of something, but you can make it less miserable by either giving people more information or making the experience more pleasurable. And I feel like it's a great book and there's so much to be applied to all businesses in that one.
Yeah, no, I'm a Rory Sutherland absolute super fan. I must have listened to that guy for 500 hours. He's spoken twice at my conference. He's absolutely amazing. Just to throw in a culture corner, he had his conference a week and a half so ago called Nudge Stock, and it's all available online. Check it out, Nudge Stock. You can just register online and watch all the talks. He did a fantastic opening. Yeah, so Rory Sutherland is an absolute legend.
He is.
And
he
then
is very...
sorry.
Go on.
I was just going to say the last one is for so many people out there, maybe who are trying to think about marketing better or looking for examples of how to do it. There's this great website called marketingexamples.com. And this guy, he just scours the internet and he will find email campaigns, ad campaigns, copy, anything you can think of. And he just tells you why it works. And it's super easy to read and scan and it's so inspirational. And I love it. I use it all the time. So I just linked it there.
Okay, great stuff. Thank you for this, Sam. Okay, Mr. Hart.
Over to me. Yeah, one is a podcast recommendation, Modern Wisdom, Chris Williamson's podcast, number 805. Gowinder Bogle, who I've been speaking about a while. He's a great thinker. Definitely worth checking it out. And my final one is a bit of a light-hearted recommendation. It's a video editing app called CapCut that has been out for a while, but it's linked to TikTok, but you can use it independently. The power of it is insane. Even just a family barbecue, just chuck a load of videos and pictures in it, and the stuff it produces is insane. So check it out.
Saves so much time editing.
Saves so much time. Yeah, CapCut is powerful. That's it. That's us over and out. We've done it
I
without
think we're
Mr.
literally
Smith.
arguing everyone out. So if Smithy does come back, it's too late anyway. We are now 85 minutes in, which is just about at our sweet spot before we all just
I think we
collapse.
realized he doesn't even need to be part of the podcast anymore. He
doesn't.
We can
That's
just do
true.
it
He
without him.
Sam, you and I will discuss contracts off air. Okay,
Okay,
you're
okay.
in. Smithy's out. Carl
Sorry.
is always a nebulous.
I'll have all my stories ready for next time. You can call me Samantha
Excellent.
the storyteller.
You will certainly
There we go.
arrive. You will certainly arrive in Liverpool with a lot of people knowing you, because a lot of people going to that conference listen to this podcast. So yeah,
great.
you'll certainly hit the ground running. That's for sure. Oh no, like 95% of the audience will know you. It's probably a bad thing.
Hello,
You've just done
everybody.
this.
Please come
You thought
say
you were going to go
hi.
to Liverpool and have a little quiet time. You're going to be like bombarded by people.
I can't
Sissy's in
wait.
Manchester.
It's Liverpool,
Yes,
isn't it?
it's in
Manchester.
Manchester.
Oh, sorry. I'm getting.
I think last year, maybe the year before.
When
Is
you
it
were saying
Manchester?
Liverpool,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was like, I'm
Old
just
Trafford.
going to let that go.
Oh,
I don't
fine.
know if he's
Okay,
going to
yeah,
show
you-
up
you
in
must
Liverpool.
know.
We'll all be in Manchester.
I just-
Okay, let me finish this up. So great stuff. See Samantha at the Sissy conference, at the Timeline conference. Trappist, that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you for your precious time. We do appreciate it. Please, please, please do leave a review on iTunes. 6 out of 5 stars is a mandatory request. And like and subscribe to us on YouTube. Click that awful bell and get notified whenever we post a new episode. They come out every other Thursday, and in so doing, you'll be notified when those shows come out. But that's pretty much it. Is that from the 2 continual Trap Pack members, myself and Ultra, guest Samantha Russell. We're missing Alan Smith, but not much. We're missing Carl Widget, even less. Take care out there, folks, and we will see you in 2 weeks' time. Adios. Goodbye. Get out of my computer.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.